Man, we got to talk about the LEC All Pro teams, guys. We've got to talk about the LEC All Pro teams because once again, I was appalled. So this was the All Pro first team of EU. 4 Mad Lions players, so nobody outside of finals, number one. Number two, if you think about how Mad Lions season was, they went 3-6 and had to play a tiebreaker to make 8th place so that they were able to qualify for group stage. Then in the group stage, they ended up qualifying second. They barely beat Fnatic. They got their ass smacked by Vitality, which everyone has just removed from their memory. And then they were able to qualify versus Astralis. I feel like when you have a split that's 6 weeks long, if you've played relatively poor for the first 5 weeks, it should be extremely hard for you to get all pro first team. But then again, like, even if you consider the fact that they, played not so good 5 out of the 6 weeks, you then have to look at like how their last week was. I mean, they played multiple 5-game series. They played close to what the other teams were. I just don't understand how after one series, like, no matter what happens in finals, I think it should be impossible for number one, Nuck being lower than Caps after this split. That's just because his name is Caps. I refuse to believe that there's any way you could have watched all of Nuck's games compared to all of Caps' games and been like, yeah, I think Caps just performed better than Nuck this split. It just doesn't make sense. Nuck was like ahead every single game. He would play Casio and be like 4-0 at 7 minutes every game. Like, what can the guy actually do? And then on top of that, you have Sheo here, who I think was smurfing almost every single game. I don't know how these guys are not all pro first team if you're looking at the whole split. It just doesn't make any sense to me that these guys who were smurfing every game, I think their overall record was like 16-6. They ripped off like 13 wins in a row or something like that. And then they got reverse swept in the finals. If that was another team, it would be considered a choke. But like, because no one really believed in BDS the whole time, it's like, oh no, they came back to reality. I just don't see how, like, if I were to do all pro first team, let me see. If I were to do all pro first team, I would probably have Chasey, Crowny, Mickey X, Nuck, and Sheo. Like, if you're gonna go for the whole split, I mean, even though BDS lost final, they're 1 game away from winning finals. I think that they were just winning every single game, like the entire split, hard. I just don't see how these players can get devalued so much by one best of 5 that they won 2 games in. It just doesn't make sense to me. I really don't like seeing how reactionary the All Pro is. It's like, what's the point of even counting the split if everyone's just going to look at finals and just vote everyone who went to finals anyway? Like, the only time that you should even have the possibility of having 4 out of 5 All Pro first team is like a mega fucking dominant split. So if you're like playing, just the regular season and you're 17-1 or like 18-0 in the regular season and the team is just so far above everyone else, that should be the only time where you even entertain that possibility. In a split that was as wide open as LEC was in spring, I don't think there's any way you could say 4 out of the 5 best players are on one team.